Hello, everybody. I think Rachel. Oh, Rachel is on it. Accept. There. Oh, yes.
Hi.
Hello, beautiful. How are you?
I am so good. How are you? You look stunning.
Thank you. You as well. This eclipse energy has kind of hit me, over the past 2 days, but I managed to get dressed.
All right. Well, we're halfway there.
Yes. Well, I know that we're going to have people coming on from both sides for us, so I want to go ahead and introduce you if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Rachel. I am an exorcist. That's for real. I do take entities out of people and places.
And then also she's an epic screenwriter, author. Yes, we have to add all of this.
Well, thank you.
Created the backstory to Tomb Raider. Hello.
Yep. Oh God, back in the day.
Hello, honey, legendary. I always give credit to the legends, the people who really we have to give our flowers because you guys have paved the way. And on top of that, you had this really cool show come out last year called Celebrity Exorcism. And I watched it. And for those of you tuning in, especially from my side, I've been approached by many producers, and I know probably Rachel has as well. And what I really enjoyed about the show, although it had celebrities in it like Meta World Peace, Shar Jackson, Jodie Sweetin, was that you didn't play up really on the exploitation. Of course, it had the fun paranormal stuff, but I commended you so much for how you actually held space for them as people who weren't necessarily fully tapped into their gifts and giving a safe space to explore that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things, right? So for that show in particular, I've been asked to do a lot of unscripted shows. I oftentimes say no because I don't trust it, or something doesn't feel right, or it's exploitative, it's something else. But this was really a special thing because I told them right off the bat, I was like, I'm not going to fake a single thing. So that's not going to happen on any show that I do, because I have integrity with the work that I do. And also, I'm going to help them, get back into their own gifts, because we all have them. This is not like a special thing that only some of us have, as much as some people like to say that. That's not true. Right. So, and it turns out that they were really, really great once they were opened up. They tapped into a lot of things. I left them to go do all those ghosts themselves. Which they did, and they did such a good job. So it's like a wonderful thing to do, to be able to take people kind of by the hand spiritually and say, wait a minute, you do have this in you, and I'm going to show you. In 4 days, you're going to find out that you have that.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. So that's why I'm like, let me plug this while I can plug it whenever we go live, because I don't think enough people saw it. But just for anybody coming in from Rachel's side, I'm the trap witch.
Yes.
I always explain to people that this was not my path here into spiritual work initially, but it was definitely my fate and my destiny. My awakening was kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where a dude showed up and was like, hey, you're a slayer, come with me, let's go do this. And I'm like, I don't want to go do it. Can I go shopping? Please. So I've been in the, spiritual community for the past 5 years. I can't believe that already. It's like half a decade when you look at that.
Time goes by.
Yes. And, I specialize in shadow work, subconscious blockages. So I always tell people, for me, when I sit with people in session, I feel like there's still baby exorcisms as removing blockages and removing different entities and addictions and all of these things. Rachel does this on a larger level. But I aspire, right? So I'm so privileged that you asked to do this live, and I would like to ask you, what inspired you for us to do this live together?
Well, see, now you have to forgive me, because I just assume that everybody knows who you are.
No.
So I'm like, oh, they know. I don't need to, but I'm glad that you went through that, because what I think, sometimes people don't realize is, well, let's go back a minute. So one thing that I love about you, I mean, there's a lot to love about you, but one thing that I love about you is that you're very honest and blunt, but not in a gross way, not in an abusive way, nothing like that, because people do that, and that's not the way. But you say things how they are, and you also spend a lot of time talking about unhealed healers. And that's something that, people are not that familiar with, I think. Not when they're starting out. Maybe we learn along the way, right? People go to people and they're like, oh, this didn't feel right. This went bad. This did something to me, whatever. But it takes time to learn that and to trust your instincts about people, especially when we put people on a pedestal. We think that they're somewhere more connected or more valid than we are. And there is nothing that makes me more angry. Like, it is my literal thing when people get taken advantage of in the spiritual way, where people who are out there saying they're going to do this for you, they can do this for you, only they know how to do this for you. And it's always bad. It's bad. And so I try to spend a lot of my time talking to people about doing the work. Like, there's no way around doing the real work. Like, you have to do it. And it is not all peace, love, and light. It very rarely is peace, love, and light, to be honest. But we have to do the hard work, and you do the work. Like, you are an authentic healer, an authentic spiritual person. And I think that comes across very easily with you. Like, I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're definitely doing the work, 100%.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think I started following you through Shaman Durek, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And what was fascinating to me, I think a little bit before I started following, I have my own experiences that I've been sharing about here and there with experiencing entities. For those of you who don't know, I'm initiated in the practice of Santeria. So I am around, traditional African religion, which still falls into the occult. And, I have had to walk away from mentors, one in which who ended up with some gnarly entities working through him. And as you said, like, I personally feel the only thing that really helped me with that was doing my own personal work. And like you said, sometimes when you pedestal these people that you trust and you feel like on the 3D hierarchy are more advanced than you,
Mm-hmm.
you fall into a codependency. And to me, that's, I just got so many chills. You end up potentially in, a shared psychosis with them. Like,
Yes.
I always tell people, like, one of the quickest ways to get people's shit on you is feeding into potentially the psychosis of themselves that is not healthy. And
Yes.
I was dealing with a person who had unresolved shadow work, and on top of that was playing with the occult. Palo Mayombe was playing with aliens. Let's get into that. He was playing with all of these things, and I remember, as me and a few other mentees, because it wasn't just myself, it was others of us having our own experiences, we would stand in front of him and we were like, oh my God, that is not him. And if we weren't operating from the place of our center and our consciousness doing our work, we could have easily fell victim to the bad advice. And I just remember standing there, and I don't know if you've ever felt this with dealing with exorcisms. I watch a lot of exorcism movies. Like,
they're hardly ever right.
You can't let it in. Sometimes you can play along, you can entertain it, but I just remember being like, oh my fucking God, I'm not coming back here again, because I know what this is, and I'm just going to shield myself the best that I can. And I'm going to detach,
Yes.
So I know that for my path, maybe not on the level of which you practice, but I'm definitely have been exposed to quite a few things in the past few years. And I tell people sometimes possession doesn't appear like The Exorcist.
No, very rarely does it. And that's a good thing to touch upon too, is how entity works and how attachment works. So my people, they know this inside and out now, but here we go again. I'm going to share it because people really don't know how this works. And it really is energy. We talk about working in energy all the time. And it's about being high frequency versus low frequency, which is a lot of words we throw around all the time too. But really what it is, you know, everybody walks around with what I call a baseline frequency, right? So, you know, if 1 is dead and 10 is Buddha, most of us are like at a 4, like a 4.5, aspiring to be better, hopefully, you know. And then, you know, when we do work on ourselves, that baseline frequency goes up, but it's not that fast, right? It takes the work, right? But when we have a trauma, that baseline frequency takes a hit. And when that happens, if we don't know how, if we don't have the tools to pick ourselves up out of that, and of course, I mean, how many people really truly do, because you're in a trauma, right? So it takes a minute. That's how entity and attachment work. They come in as low frequency to attach to low frequency. Some people are naturally low frequency, unfortunately. They just are walking around pretty unconscious. And then there's people who are kind of what I call purposely, you know, low frequency. And those are people who are even doing like spirit work, let's say for whatever gain, for some kind of other gain, for power, for control, for money, for whatever. So that's all low frequency. And so when you are someone who is working on yourself and you're working in higher frequency, you can easily see, I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can't, but like, I believe that you can see when someone is in that low frequency space and has the attachment, which is like, for you in that moment, you had a choice, and the choice was, I'm going to expect everyone to come to me at my level, right? Or I'm going to lower myself to be at this level. And I'm always like, do not ever lower yourself. And ladies, take this advice for lots of things, but do not lower yourself for someone's lower frequency. You are not bringing them up to you. They have to work their way up to you. And some people don't want to do that. And so even healers, you know, even leaders, even all of these people can be unhealed, not interested in being of service for real, you know, and be taking advantage of people. And that does not bring anything good into your life. And the funny thing about what's crazy about online life is that we're constantly bombarded with images of people looking like they're living their best life. And so that's especially harmful, I think, sometimes from people who consider themselves like spiritual leaders, because it looks like they have everything together all the time. And so, of course, from the outside looking in, you're like, oh my God, this person is, you know, so connected to spirit that they're getting all these amazing things happening in their life. And it's funny because most of the time they're not living authentically. That stuff is not true. They bought their followers, or they've done, you know, whatever behind the scenes that people don't know. And I'm always like the one who's the opposite of that, where I'm like, you know, I haven't really done that much on social media. Like, I'm trying to be better, you know, and like living my life behind the scenes a lot, and just doing the work, and like not sharing every, you know, 5 seconds about what's going right or what's going wrong, you know, because you can be connected and still have bad days. You can be connected and still have to wait your turn for stuff, you know. So I just think it's interesting because people portray a lot of things about themselves that are false, you know, and it's such an easy way to manipulate people, and I hate it. Like, I just hate it so much.
I talked a little bit about that a few months ago, or especially around glamour magic, and like, just based on what you were saying just now, it brought up the energy of desperation for me. So like, even if you're somebody who is potentially, you know, trying to put out a glamour of a life that you desire, that you're really desperate to have people's energy coming at you, you know, I feel like I've seen tons of people who, because they are in that, actually in that energy of desperation, no matter how much they put the image out, they're still attracting people who are desperate for also that. And so it's like a constant loop, I feel like.
Yes. Yes. And who gets healed out of that? Nobody. No one person, you know?
Especially if the person, I feel like, you know, putting on the glamour is only desiring money, not really wanting to help people. So, you know, it becomes a codependent relationship. And I really, you know, for the past, I want to say since 2018, especially, I've been trying to subtly call out behavior that's just, I just don't think is honorable or in integrity in the long run for our community. And even today, was it today? Yeah, pretty much midnight. You know, I made a really, I'd say risky post for me, because I've never been a person to actually call out energy by putting a face to the energy. But I think we're at that point now where we have to assume that people aren't going to do their own research. So we have to put the image in front and say, this is what it looks like. This is what it walks like. This is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are getting hurt at enormous rates. And I think we're getting to the point where we do have to help people a little bit more, because we can't assume that they're just going to do the research, and especially if they're stuck in that energy, like we're saying, where they're easily getting caught up in the glamour, and then they're operating at a frequency. But at the end of the day, we can't lead a horse to water if they don't want to drink.
No, well, that is true. I mean, listen, we can only put out there, like, this is a thing that exists. You have to trust your instincts so much. And I think that's a hard thing for people. You know, I think trusting how they feel in a situation can be really difficult. And especially because, again, you know, we're saying that people in the spiritual community who are leaders in whatever way, or look a certain way, or have a certain thing, whatever it is, you know, people really believe it. They really believe that that person knows more than they do and is a higher, closer to God human being than they are. And it's such a vulnerable position. You know, some people who come into spirituality or seek spirituality or go through the process of, you know, having their awakening and moving through that journey are pretty astute already, and kind of jaded, which I like. You know, and they're just like, oh no, I don't like the way this feels. I don't like the way that looks. I don't like this. And so that's fine. Like, they don't need that so much. But there are other people who come in because they're lost, they're confused, they're looking for something. And that's the part that makes me crazy, because then there are people who latch on to that so hard, you know, and take their savings and make them buy things and make them, you know, go through incredible things. I mean, I've heard some incredible things about what people have been told they cannot have, they cannot do, they cannot be, you know, how to speak, how to dress, how to do all of these things, or you will not be connected to spirit. And I'm just like, that's crazy. That's actually crazy, because we're born connected to spirit. Like, I just did this whole TikTok. I just started TikTok. I just did this TikTok where I was like, stop, you guys have to stop asking me, like, what do you have to do to be worthy of spirit? Like, nothing. Like, you could be drinking every night and, you know, whatever all day and still be able to connect to spirit. You don't have to be changing anything about yourself. There's nothing that you need to do just inherently to be connected. Now, if you want to do those things because you want to do those things, you know, or because you're following a certain practice or you're doing something specific, okay, fine. But, like, you all are already worthy. You're already worthy. You don't need anything from anybody to do that. So it drives me crazy when people are like, you need to buy like 10 of my programs and 50 of my things and do this and do that. I can't stand it.
Yeah, you know, I find in the past couple years, funny, someone says, somebody's snoring, is like, do you have a
Yes,
dog?
I'm so sorry. Okay, so my dog, Honey, she is a Pekingese. I'm going to turn this crazy light down too. She is a Pekingese, and she has like this mushy face, but she loves, I'm in the spirit room. This is my spirit room. This is my chair. And she has to be in here or she will lose her mind.
It's okay. But everybody was like, I was like, am I hearing it too? And I figured it was just your dog. But, okay.
Oh my God. I'm so used to it. I don't even tell you anymore. I'm just like, you would laugh so hard because, you know, well, I guess between all of us now, I've been working on my TV series for the last 2 years, but we've been doing a lot of Zoom calls, obviously, because we haven't been that much in person. And she's always in here snoring. And eventually everyone was like, okay, what is going on at your house?
Is it the no, it's just the Pekingese?
Yeah, no, it's not demons. It's just Honey.
Oh, what I was going to ask you is, you know, in the past couple of years, especially, you know, since now, like, ancestral practices exploded on the internet. I want to say since really 2017, 2016. You know, I find that so many people are really desperate to connect to spirits, to connect to ancestors in a way, in a very esoteric, mystical, fantastical way. And me personally, whenever I'm sitting with people and I'm telling them, you know, to do the work, to venerate their ancestors. I'm always looking to them before I'm looking to that astral world. Have you found in the past, let's say 5-6 years, has there been more people who have picked up energetic dirt and lint and entity things because there's such a desperation to tap into that world, which to me at times I think could be a form of disassociation?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be quite honest, in the last, let's say, 5 years, maybe six even, for lots of reasons, you know, people have had, I've seen more people with attachments than previous to that. Not to say that we're people walking around with attachments. There's tons of people walking around with attachments, not to be scary, but that's reality, you know. But yes, I do think so. And here's a weird thing that's come up in the last, oh my gosh, even in just the last week. So back when I wrote my book, which was a few years ago, there was a whole chapter on like wraiths. Okay, so wraiths are a group of entities that are attached to sexual dysfunction. So they produce night terrors, sleep paralysis, things like that. And usually they are attached to someone who's unfortunately been molested or raped, or at some time seen something too early, been exposed to something too early. And unfortunately there are a lot of people with wraiths. Okay. So it was almost rare, I would say, to find someone who had a lineage wraith. So passed on to them from some very epic situation in that vein that happened to somebody down the line, you know, in their family. I have had 3 in the last week. Mm. So why that's happening, I don't have the answer to, but it definitely is showing up more. So I don't know if there's like this kind of cosmic situation where people are going searching for something through their ancestral line, like you're saying, and kind of finding all this other stuff that has come with them.
Do you think it has anything to do with the boom of hypersexuality?
I would say yes, except these are ones that happen to somebody else, technically, right? So this is lineage. So this is a wraith that was attached to somebody that they passed on. I don't know the ins and outs of it, you know, because I just see the entity and take the entity out. So it's fascinating to me, though, because that's really what's been happening in like the last few years, that more people are showing up with those ancestral kind of wraith attachments.
And is this spelled R-A-I-T-H?
Yes.
Okay, a wraith. Okay, I've never...
W-R-A-I-T-H.
Wraith spirit. Okay, I might have to look into that. Yeah, because, you know, I think it's interesting, you know, in the past couple of years too, you know, with all the boom of everything, you know, people talk about soul ties, people talk about, you know, sexually transmitted demons. You know, I have like some, you know, feelings about it. Like sometimes I feel like, and I just made a video about this the other day. I've always been a woman, even if I was very promiscuous at times, I find that I was able to put an energetic shield in a way because I was not emotionally attached. And I think emotional attachment is a form of a way that you really open yourself up, I feel like. Like you're talking about low vibration. I think, again, like we're talking about being in a spirit of desperation to be loved, you know, codependency, of being all these things. Like, are these all things that allow more stuff in, or more attachments? Do you see?
Yeah, I mean, you know, sexuality in particular is a hard one because it's an energetic exchange. You know what I mean? Down to the basics, it's an energetic exchange. And so if you're someone who, you know, and listen, there are so many reasons people are doing this, but like if you've been someone who's kind of lowered yourself to be with somebody who is just like really not worthy of you, to be quite frank, right? You know, we've all done that at some point. You know, you've been like, I'm going to fix this person, or I'm going to heal this, or I'm going to make this better. And they're a low frequency person, and you're trying to be high frequency. When you exchange that, you're taking some of that low frequency in. There's no way around that, you know. Especially the more the more you care for that person, obviously the more connected you will be to that person. So it's tough. It's actually really tough. So I always tell people, like, I know this sounds crazy, but like, this person's got to be worthy of you. They have to, like, you know how people are always like, I want to know if this person has like STDs and whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's one checklist, but let's go over another. You know, is this person spiritually doing things to better themselves? Is this person like on the same plane as you? Is this person like good enough for you? Because you want high frequency in your life everywhere that you can get it, you know?
Absolutely. It reminds me, made me think about, was it Practical Magic? You remember when Nicole Kidman, they ended at the end of the movie, they're ending up, because he's, you know, he's becomes a spirit, he's trying to stay attached to her, he's coming through people, he's coming through the rooms, you know. I think that was like a great extreme lesson in like low frequency.
Yes, absolutely.
My question for you, like around attachments, like, you know, and just entities right now, like especially we're in Scorpio season, right? Going to the end of 2023. Like, if you had anything to share with people to know about these things at this time that could really benefit them or protect them, what would you want them to know?
Let's see. Well, a couple of things. So on my side on Instagram, I have what I list out as my 30-day connection to spirit. And it's like a 5-minute process that people can do. I won't get into all the, you know, whatever's of it, but it's over there. And if you do it for 30 days, it raises the frequency, because what we want to do is raise up your vibration, because the higher you are, the less likely you will have attachment, because attachment has nothing to feed on. They're looking for low frequency. If you are high frequency, it's going to starve. So it's just about getting people to that place of higher frequency. It's so, it's going to sound so cheesy, I'm just going to say, but like, the kinder you are, the more you think of other people, the kinder you are to yourselves, your own self-talk, all of that stuff matters. That's all your vibration. You know, the more conscious you are with other people, the more conscious you are with yourself. All of those things matter. And in the book, I have a whole chapter on, like, even if you're like the most selfish person, if you do it just for yourself, you know, so make sure you don't have attachment. You're going to do something nice for someone today, and that's just going to keep you clean, then do it. You know, just do it, because if everybody on this planet did something nice for someone else on a daily basis, even if it was just the tiniest gesture, or even for themselves, honestly, let's be real, even for themselves, we would be a much happier place, you know, and a much more conscious place, and a less entity riddled place, to be honest.
Here comes my devil's advocate, but then you can't be an empath who's out there just setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. So
Oh,
having
no.
that's, people don't recognize that's like another way to lower your frequency.
Yes, that's true. That is not the same thing. So we have to start with ourselves. So if you've been like a child of abuse, if you've gone through empath narcissistic relationships, if you've been through all this trauma, then you know what that is like. You know when you're overextending, you know when you're lowering yourself, you know when you put up with crumbs that you don't need, like, you know that. So for those people, I would say start with yourself, you know, start with yourself, because what I want for all empaths is to be able to walk in their power. Because so many people, I see so many people who are just like, I'm not powerful. I'm not all powerful. Like, I have just been treated by the world like broken. And so I believe that now, you know, and that, I get it. I totally get that, because that's part of going through the spiritual process and awakening, right? Is stepping into your power, finding your voice, finding your goddess energy, finding all that stuff. And I want everybody to do that. Like, every person who's been through those things, all of those big feel people, all of the sponges of the world, you know, who are like, I just want to make everybody happy. We got to start with you. Like, forget everybody else. Talk about you first, you know, because there are so many empaths in the world who don't do that. They just don't give themselves anything, you know, and then they're like burnt out by the whole world all the time.
Absolutely. Um, Before we like get into, you know, like some of the initial things we were going to talk about, like with spiritual bypassing in the community, whatever have you, I wanted to bring up something that I talked about probably like 2 months ago too. Just with like communication, telephones, and all these things. I think we just briefly touched on it before. I was talking about just like air magic, like the subliminal messaging and
Mm.
osmosis that is in communication and in phones, and you know, just like how much, like you said, you know, I like to look at entities too as just like vibrations of like, okay, anger, hatred, manipulation, looking at like, you know, dark psychology, 48 laws of power. And I feel like so many people are using their phones and technology and their words and their communication now to, like, again, like you said, the glamour magic, attach these hooks into people to feed on them. And I always tell people, like, a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with like succubus or incubus energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look up the basic meaning, like, okay, a spirit that has sex with an unknowing person, I feel like that's so much just deeper than having sex. It's like someone who's trying to interact with your energy while you're unconscious, while you're not woke, when you're not aware.
Right. Yes. I mean, that goes back into spiritual bypassing so much. I mean, especially when it comes to people. Like, there are always going to be people, like, sometimes I joke and I say, like, sometimes the person is worse than their entity, you know? Because there's always going to be people who are doing that. There's always going to be people who are vampires. It's just the way it is. Like, you know, you've been around people, even when they're, maybe, I wouldn't say the best intentions, but like they're a certain way. And by the time you're done with them, you're exhausted. You're just depleted. You're just like, what did I just go through? Like, what just happened here? I feel like that's really similar, you know, because it's like they're just filling the room. They're just taking it and taking it and taking it and feeding off of it. And it's a lot. And I do think that there's a lot of that online, and that manipulation and all of those things are part of it, because it's like there's an intent behind it. You know what I mean? There's always an intent behind that energy. And I love to give people the benefit of the doubt, and they say, well, maybe sometimes they don't know what that intent is. And so I'll stick around and watch it for a little while. And then I'll be like, oh my God, they definitely know what that intent, like that is the intent. Okay, got it. I got it. I'm gonna stay away from that for now. But yes, there's so much of that going on. And it, like you said, that whole glamour magic situation and like pulling people in and doing all this stuff. And I mean, I can't even remember what it was like before we had this anymore. You know, all of this like online social media, whatever. It's so crazy. Like, I didn't grow up with that. You know, I was younger, and so, or I'm older now, I should say. And so I didn't have a lot of that as a child, but like, I cannot imagine what young women are going through. You know, like teen girls. You know, it just blows my mind, like the stuff that they have to watch and be and think that they need to look like or be like. It's crazy to me.
Oh yeah, you know, as I like really began to awaken in 2016, 2017, there's times where I look back at old pictures of myself and just the way that I was either editing the photo or the way I like wanted myself to appear. Now when I actually look back at my photos, I can literally see how dark my aura was. And I can see how like not there I was as well. And there's times where I'm like, oh my God, like where was I, you know? And
Yes.
at times people, you know, people don't recognize. Even recently I showed a friend of mine, there's a photo I have of my mom when she was on like 25 prescription medications versus now where she's not on nearly as many, and literally her whole aura, her eyes have changed, like everything has, you know, shifted. And so I think at times we have to remember that so many things hold attachments and vibrations and frequencies. And like in Santeria, we talk about everything having its own energy, your own ashe, and we're constantly interacting with it. But if you don't know your own frequency, you don't know your own ashe, you don't have control of your own consciousness, that makes how you're interacting with everything, you know, so much potentially more dangerous. Like
Yes.
alcohol, you know, uh, um, stimulants, all of these things, if you're not aware of your vibration, your frequency, how they impact them, the things that, you know, it could potentially let in. You know, I know you're a Pisces, right? You're a
Yes,
Pisces.
yes.
And like, you're like one of the most grounded Pisces I've ever met. So
I'm a
like,
Leo rising, so I got drama going on. You know
oh,
what
that's why we like each other. I'm a Leo rising too.
I mean? Nice.
What?
Gemini.
Ah, okay. I can definitely see that.
I'm
Yeah,
all over the place.
you have grounded energy, but you know, most Pisces that I meet, like Pisces to me are like one of the worst ever signs to meet that when they are ungrounded, especially like if they, you know, because they're able to tap into the astral realm so easily.
Right, that's true.
And when that shit is ungrounded,
Well, I won't say it doesn't happen to me. I won't say it doesn't, because like there are times when, you know, like if I've done, okay, so every now and again, I'm just going to clear this because my phone is crazy. Every now and again, I do, well, what it's gone down to once a year. Once a year, I do a seance for friends and family. And this year it's November because I like to do it when the veil is wherever it is that year. So this year, our veil is thin, started in September, go until like, you know, US Thanksgiving basically, and then it starts to go back up. So those nights are crazy because I do what people call platforming, right? So you have like a bunch of people, and then whatever comes in, and I say it out, and then people are like, that's for me, I think. And so we just keep doing that for like 2 hours. By the end of that 2 hours, I'm probably the loopiest Pisces you've ever seen, because I'm just like, oh my God, what just happened for 2 hours? You know, it's a lot of energy.
well, that's still different. You know, I've had experiences with like, you know, once upon a time a client I just had to let go because they were someone who were trying to, you know, tap into the occult and be a practitioner. But again, when you haven't done deep shadow work, when you're not in your
it's bad.
And then you go start channeling. Like I had this person like message me and be like, I'm so sorry, I have to get on a call with you. Like I have to confess that I think that you've been doing witchcraft to me. And I'm like, bro, I'm sitting of the road in my car trying to eat a vegan burger right now. Like, you know, but again, like how people's paranoia, right, and their projections play on them. And I think people don't also recognize too that, and I wrote a post about this a few weeks ago because people were complaining about, you know, the Dahmer series. People were saying, oh my God, this is going to let so many attachments and entities and demons in. And I'm just like, not if you don't have an obsessive mind. You know, and I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that they walk around with a very paranoid, fanatical, or obsessive mind. And that is an invitation for entities and attachments too.
I mean, you know, again, low frequency overall is what brings attachment, right? So unfortunately, you know, because people have asked me this before too, you know, like the church, for example, they have to go through a whole checklist of, is it mental illness or is it, you know, possession? The truth is that those two things are not mutually exclusive. I mean, you know, if you are in a space of mental illness, whatever that means, and you know, you are low frequency on top of that, you can have an entity that exacerbates everything. So it is possible, you know, to be depressed, let's say, and also unfortunately have entity. It sucks that works that way, but it can work that way. But like, if it's not mental illness and you're just low frequency, and that low frequency has put you in a mindset of being obsessive about something or being negative about, because, you know, there are people who, you know, mental illness aside, just are the most negative people. And then they complain constantly that nothing works out for them. You know, nothing will ever work out for them, but they don't want to take any advice or do any of the work to raise their frequency either, you know? So then it's very easy to say, well, I watched this thing and so that's why I feel this way. Or I looked at this thing and that's why I feel, or somebody talked to me like this. So it's not my responsibility to do the work on myself in any way. You know what I mean? Like, fine, if something doesn't work for you, avoid it. Don't look at it. You know, if you want to complain about, like, if watching something like that would upset you personally, then don't watch it. Don't watch it. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like, to each their own, do your thing. But to make comments about other people, right? And what this is going to do for everybody is ridiculous. It's crazy. Like, I am a horror movie fanatic. I mean, I write horror for a living. Like, that's what I do, you know? And it's so funny. Like, oh man, if you really want to go there, not even just horror, but like, speaking of alcohol, for example, people are so crazy when they talk about alcohol, like in the spiritual community. It makes me nuts because I'm a person who drinks. I believe alcohol is good. Alcohol is good for me. Um, I'm not an alcoholic. And I always say, like, if you are, if that's if something is a problem for you, please, please, please do not do that. But also, if you are a spiritual leader, do not tell people that having one glass of wine is going to cause all the demons in your body. That's not true. That's a lie. You know, it depends on the person. Everybody's different. There's no blanket statement for anything. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, you know, and I think that's why, like, I always tell people why I love Santeria. You know, when we come to the practice and we get our own divinations done for us as individuals, there are usually precise prescriptions and advice for you. So, like, for me personally, yes. I'm somebody who was recommended enjoy having a drink, but don't get drunk.
Okay.
You know, so.
Yeah.
You know, and then another person I might have witnessed, they said poison is alcohol to you, right? So just don't do it. So there's, again, right, there's levels. And again, understanding people's chemistry. For me, I've recognized in the past when I didn't have that advice, me getting drunk is really kind of heated. It brings out a heated energy because I just think I'm a heated personality in general. So again, I've always told people, like, you don't have to be vegan to be high frequency. You don't have to be a non-drinker to be high frequency. Damn, you don't have to be even it was celibate to be high frequency. You know, again, it's depending on how, I think also too, you're protecting your energy,
Very much so.
At where your heart is at, you know, and seeing how you keep your energy. And again, like, you know, I think we're both like this, like, I'm not into purity culture by any means, but still understanding spiritual hygiene. Like, you can be someone who's into spiritual hygiene without being like a purist.
Of course. Yes. And so as to exactly what you're saying, some things would not work for me. Like, some people, you know, to start their spiritual journey, they do things like ayahuasca, you know, or they do things that open up their minds. My life is ayahuasca, so I can't do that. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, I don't say don't do it or anything like that, because for some people that's the way they do things, and it actually does work and heals for them. But for me, that would be bad. You know what I mean? So I know where my mind has to be too. I know what works for me and what doesn't. And like you said, that's completely individual. And like with alcohol too, in particular, I think the way people ingest alcohol is important. Because for so many years in our history, and all, not even our history, just history in general, of a lot of different cultures, a lot of different spiritual cultures, people used alcohol as part of their ritual ceremony. Mm-hmm. You know, it was specifically for ritual. So right now I'm actually working on a whole line of wines that are specific ritual wines that you use with intent. And so I think there's something to be said about how you ingest things, how you do things. You know, what is the intent? So for me, I guess the intent is behind everything. What is the intent that you have with whatever you're doing, and how does that work for you? What, you know, do you find that when you have that intent, you receive that thing that you were looking for with that item, or did it throw you off the rails? If you're off the rails, then maybe that's not the right thing for you. You know?
Absolutely. I have a question for you, if you're open to it.
Yes.
You're talking about, you know, like media and all of these things. Do you remember Astroworld? Do you know about Astroworld?
No, I do not know what that is.
Okay, do you know who Travis Scott is?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember that big concert that he had that, like, it broke?
Oh, right. Yes.
Okay, so I want to bring this up because I don't know if you ever saw that episode of American Horror Stories where they had the movie that drove everybody insane.
Oh, yes.
Which people don't know. Like, I've done a little bit of research on this movie that was called, like, Fury of the Demon, which was like a silent movie that supposedly, I think, probably American Horror Story, like, loosely based it off of. Do you think, because, you know, just based on some of the stories that were coming out of Astro World, there were people who said that, like, oh man, I've gone to heavy metal concerts and, like, you know, you'd think that the energy there would be just so low. Like, there were people who said they were in Astro World and they were caught in that energy, and they said they literally felt like they were in hell.
So yes, let me speak on this a minute. So here's something that I don't know that people know, but, and we're not going to name names. Okay. But we're going to put this idea out. Okay. So I am technically Hollywood's premier exorcist. I've been doing this for, oh, I don't even want to say now, but like 12 years of my life, working on everybody here in Los Angeles. So I have worked on rock legends, oh my gosh, heads of studio, Oscar winners, you know, everybody that you can think of, I've probably seen at some point within this 12-year period. So I say this because you're talking about a concert, right? So we're talking about a concert. We're talking about a lot of people, a lot of people's energies in the mix, a lot of stuff like that. I have worked on people who have very large concerts, okay, that also had entity and had entity during those concerts. And it affected people so much because it was there and it was being put out to people. And like, not on purpose, you know, just this person happened to have this thing and this is what happened, right? But people were so affected by this that they would, normally, let's say like something that would be pretty tame, like a concert that would be super tame, would suddenly be like enraged. Like people would be enraged. They would be getting into fights. Like I saw this firsthand before and after I worked on one particular person. Like I was at the concert before, I was at the concert after, and I was like, holy shit, it's like a totally different space, you know? Because people don't realize how affected they are. And especially it's like, you know, again, it's like it's that same kind of energy as like spiritual leadership, right? Here's somebody that you admire for whatever reason. This person is on a pedestal. This person is legitimately on a pedestal. They're on a stage. They're on a different place. And that energy just comes out. It just comes out, you know? So it's crazy. Like for me, so I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was born with the ability to see entity with my eyes. I can see entity the same way I see people. And so when I go to places like concerts, I have to try and shut down as much as I possibly can because you just be seeing shit everywhere.
You know, I think you brought it back to, you know, again, like initially one of the things that we were wanting to talk is like how dangerous it is to put somebody on the pedestal, not knowing or consciously knowing where their frequency is at and what they're putting out. You know, I first really started recognizing how powerful this was at a Beyonce concert because I remember being at the Beyonce concert, the Beyonce Jay-Z concert in 2015, and just them saying like, put your cell phones up in the air, and you look around and you're like, God, there's like 70,000 people doing what they told them to do. And then I always remember from then, it's like how powerful one person can be, but also how much energy is being channeled at that one person. And I think we see that so much like on Instagram, where let's say Beyonce can post a photo within 5 seconds, there's 50,000 comments. You have a celebrity that goes live within 1 second, there's 9,000 people that are
intense.
And for me personally, in the past year, I'd say 2022, I think 2017 till this year, it didn't impact me as much, but now I literally have to take more time to prepare for lives because usually afterwards I am being more impacted by the energy just when I come off. And it's not necessarily like a negative, but I'm like, oh my God. And I think so many people, whether it was through the pandemic, all the things we've been going through, I feel like so many people's frequencies are really low right now, pulling, and they're pulling you through the screen and they're pulling you through the comments and it's a lot. And I think again, where we have to be careful how we pedestal people, because again, what part of you, what emotion are you pulling on? And are you pulling on it because you feel like you can't self-source an energy, you know, from within you, or just making sure you're not pulling from a place of desperation?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, it's been hard, you know,
Yeah.
like it's been hard on people. Everything that we've gone through, it's collective trauma. Like we've gone through such a collective trauma. We're still going through it. I mean, it's not like it's done, you know, it didn't just disappear, right? And people have changed so much in the last few years, and their expectations of themselves and their expectations of other people. And it's just been hard on people. You know, people have developed habits they don't like, and, you know, maybe have been more withdrawn even like after, like myself, you know, I'm an empath myself. And, you know, now going out, I have to get like mentally prepared because I don't have it in me like I used to. Like I have to just be like, okay, I'm gonna go out into the world. I'm gonna be okay. Like I have to like, you know, it's not shield is not the right term, but you know what I mean. Like I have to kind of psych myself up a little more than I did before 2020. You know, like being out with people again. And I think that's been really rough for people's energy, just their frequency, just their baselines, just everything, you know. And then there were people who spent a lot of this pandemic alone, you know, without friends, without partner, without whatever. That's rough, you know. It's weird, and like all they had was this, like what we're doing here. This was it. And so I think this became even more powerful, you know. And now I feel like people are just on this all the time. Like this is where they're getting their self-worth in whatever way that that is, whether it's following somebody or doing something or being acknowledged by somebody or putting stuff out themselves, whatever that is. And it's really like I want to tell people like, okay, we need to come back into ourselves, you know. Just take a breath, just take a moment, like feed yourself. Just look at the tree. Like I'm talking to you, but I also can see my tree, you know? So I'm like, okay, that's like a little bit of both. And it's nice. It's nice to be able to reconnect with the earth, with yourself, with life, with the snoring dog, you know, all of those things. And I wish there was a way that I could just give people what they're missing, you know? Like I really wish there was a way I could do that. Because you're right, like so many people see somebody, whoever that famous person is, that big person, that person that they look up to, and they don't even think about the fact that that person's going through shit all the time too. Like I talk to so many people that people probably put on a pedestal, like so many people every day that have the bazillion, you know, fans and the, you know, paparazzi all over the place and all that stuff. And they come in and they're just like, I am such a fucking mess. I am such a my boyfriend this and my this that and the other, and this isn't working, and I didn't get this, and I don't know why I feel so ugly, and I don't know why, and it's the same stuff. And I just wish I could be like, listen, all of you, like we're all the same. Like there's so much that we're the same about, and this stuff doesn't make you feel any better about yourself, or doesn't give you the self-worth you think you're missing. It doesn't do any of that. Like I work with people who are loved and loved and loved by people they don't know, that are the most insecure people you'll ever meet. It doesn't fix it, you know? So we have to think about where we're getting that from, because if we're pulling that from someone, we're making them crazy. You know, we're making ourselves crazy. That's why we have to, like you say, we have to find it with us. We have to find it with us. Like there are people I admire and love and I respect so much, but I feel like there are people I know, like actually know, you know, those are the people I love and respect so much, I guess, because I feel like I got to know how great they are as human beings, you know? So I don't know. I don't know if that's like a tangent, but you know what I mean? Like,
No, absolutely. No, and I think like right now too, like, and I don't know how you feel about this or what you've been seeing, but around it's October now. Around August, I started getting the hit that I needed to start talking about suicide. And, you know, it's not necessarily my expertise, right? I always tell people I'm very passionate about helping people choose life, but I've been told that I need to at least bring some awareness to it. And I've been really, really, really upset and sad. Like even this past week, people very close to me are losing people through, through suicide, and a lot of people who appear to be in happy, loving relationships. And I understand that, people, their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions, nobody can change that at times besides them. But I would have to ask you, and I'm asking this too based on, I know like via Santeria, like there are clouds and frequencies and energies that can play into that. And do you think that there's been any extra intense energy that has made this more prevalent this year? Because I feel like it's still going to get really bad going into December.
Yeah, I feel like just from energy perspective, from what I've seen, 2021 was very hard. People started to kind of go downhill a little bit energetically in 2021, and this year it's not really cleared up for me. Like I feel like so the summer was very intense energy. This particular summer I think was pretty harsh energetically, and I think that a lot of people have reached kind of an energetic breaking point at this space, at this time, that really hit home around that time that you're saying. Like for me it was like July-ish, where I started to see more people that were like, I'm at like a breaking point, I need to fix this. I will say, if I could leave it on a high note, I feel like next year's energy is going to shift in a huge, huge, huge momentous way. So for everyone who's in here and for everyone who sees this afterwards, I know you've been through some shit and are probably still going through some shit, but like, if you can hang in there till the January, February, March time, I think you're going to see that 2023 is going to be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there was a lady in here earlier. Her name is Diamonds_8. She's a cardologist, and she was saying to me yesterday, we were talking about this. She said, a lot of people still have to clear up some of the lingering things that they didn't deal with from 2021. So it's like, go ahead and do your shadow work, do the things, address those things, because I think that a lot of people are having the walls close in on them from just the things that they haven't addressed. So it's unfortunate. I'm sending love to the spirits that have decided to leave us. It's really sad because a lot of them, like I said, very high functioning on the outside, appear very happy, but
of course,
just have chosen to leave us. And, is there anything that you want to touch on about, initially spiritual bypassing, the messy healers in the community? Because I know that's something we've been talking about, entities and attachments.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, okay? Just because someone calls themselves a healer does not mean they don't have attachment. If we're not doing the work, and by doing the work, it's exactly that. It's going through the trauma, going through your own darkness, kind of facing that side of you and coming out the other side, right? Continually doing things that keep you high frequency, that keep you protected, that keep you in a space where you keep yourself out of the healing, because that is something that I know particularly I pay attention to. I don't ever want my own personal biases about anything in the healing work that I do. If I did that, that would lower my frequency and that would put me at risk. So when I enter like a building in particular, let's say, because entity and buildings that's a traumatic situation, I have to be so high frequency that nothing can touch me. Nothing. Because I have to walk away from that building that night, and that building better be clean, right? So to do that, I better be clean, or I'm gonna have a problem. So for me, making sure that I check my own self out of the equation is actually very important. Not putting my own slant on anything, not expecting anything from people, not expecting anything from entity, even just going in, everything is new, everything is different every time, and just dealing with that in the moment. But I feel like, there are a lot of people who also do this thing where they're like, they blame spirit for everything, right? You know those people. They're just like, Spirit says I can do this. Spirit says I can't do this. Spirit says this. Spirit says that. And it's like, no, no, no. This is just you and the things you want to do. Just own it. Just own it. And then you want to do it or don't do it. Don't blame it on Spirit. Like, go through and do the work. Actually raise your frequency. Actually look at the negative parts of self. Constantly be checking those things, because that's, we evolve, and as we do, more stuff goes on, so we just have to keep checking it. Never get comfortable, I guess, is the thing that I'm saying.
I definitely think people get way too comfortable, and then they get caught. But again, like, I think there has to be a healthy balance between ego and humility.
Yes,
Humble,
very much.
and then when to let the ego lead a little bit, to get you through. But you have to know that dance.
Yes, exactly. And also understanding that being in your power is not ego necessarily. Being in your power does not give you an excuse to be an asshole. It doesn't give you an excuse to bully people. It doesn't give you an excuse to tell people this is how it is. It's my way or the highway, or, you won't be connected to Spirit if you don't do it this way. None of that is real. Stepping into your power means you don't have to do any of that stuff. You don't have to. You don't care about what other people are doing. You're not worried about other people. If other people don't love you, you don't know it. That's it. That's it, And like, for me, stepping into my power is about that. It's about being good with myself, being good with Spirit, being connected, being open, and doing the work.
Absolutely. It's funny. I wanted to say this one thing because I don't know how much time left you have. I remember watching the show, and I saw you bring out that spirit board. At first, I was like, "Oh no, sis, don't bring out the Ouija board." Then when you were like, "Oh no, it's like a benevolent spirit board," like, for you, like, do you have anything to say about like using like Ouija boards, or calling in energy with you not knowing what you're doing?
I mean, obviously, like, for me, I would prefer people don't do that, because I think people are a little big for their britches. Like, I think they know it all, and they'll just go do stuff, and then they will call something, and that's not so great. Also, though, if you're doing something like trying to connect to Spirit and you're using tools, I think that's okay, but it's again about intention, right? So what's the intention? Like, are you cleansing this board? Are you saying, I'm only allowing this in and believing it and being strong in that? Are you working with other people? Because something like a Ouija board works best with other people. It's less dangerous with other people, and then closing it down when you're done, making sure it's clean. Like, all of these things matter. So to me, it's just like another tool. But if you are a person who's like, I want to just contact the worst of everything, and I just want to pull in all whatever, and I just need to know that something exists out there, well, good luck to you, because that's going to pull in some negative shit.
Yeah, because I've seen people on Instagram who, like, tell people to do workings with graveyard dirt that don't know what they're doing. I've seen people who talk about doing blood rituals with using their own blood. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, that's some stuff.
I can admit early on in my journey, like, my bitch ass went and got graveyard dirt that I wasn't supposed to, and I almost burnt my house down.
Well, that's the thing. See, people don't realize that that's what actually happens. It's not necessarily that all these entities are coming with you, but when you do stuff that you shouldn't be doing, it might cause other damage. So it's like Spirit kind of is like, no, don't do that. Like, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do this in a way that you understand. I don't want you doing that. So you don't do it again.
It was so humbling. It was like 2016, I think, when I did it. I remember, like, I literally left the area for one split second. I came back and, like, the flames were up to here, and I was
You were like, I'm gonna wait on that one. Well, my favorite is when people get tattoos of other cultures, spiritual cultures, and they put them on their body. They don't even know what that tattoo is, and I'm like, oh my God, good luck to you. I don't know what's gonna happen there. I don't know what's gonna happen.
So that's a big no-no for you.
I would not do it. Like, for me, like, one thing, you like, I don't know, like, it's not a spiritual thing to you, then fine. But if it's like a specific kind of spiritual thing and you don't actually understand what the meaning of that thing is, you should not put that on your body. You should not put that on your body.
You know, and that speaks to something else I saw one time on Instagram. There was a witch who was giving a sigil out to people and telling them it was for X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, how y'all know that's what that sigil's supposed to do? Like, have you Googled it? Have you looked it up? Like, please just have some sort of awareness before, again, you go doing something out of desperation or
Right.
you know, ignorance, and then you're inviting shit to you.
Right. And again, like sometimes it's even just spirit that you're having come your way to teach you, like, no, you should not be doing that. But that's just as bad in its own way, you know? It's like when people are like, I'm going to start working with this particular god, goddess, whatever, but I have no knowledge of this. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. It's like, okay, see what happens, I guess. It's probably not going to be good at first.
Like there was this viral article about this girl. She was a white girl who supposedly called on Papa Legba and she ended up dead. It's been a viral you know, article. I don't know how true it was, but you know, I think some of those things sometimes they do get sensationalized. But
Sure.
yeah, like there's times where if you don't know, it's not like fucking Crayola where you have like a box of crayons. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna summon Papa Legba because I'm feeling red, and maybe next week we'll, you know, Lakshmi, or you know, like I just think that people
That's messy.
Yeah, again, but a lot of times people want to spiritually bypass themselves and start here and ask yourself, what are my weaknesses? What are my vices? What are my traumas? What are the things that I need to work through to be a better person? And again, right? So many of us get obsessed by our desires that we are so focused on the manifesting and the desires that we overlook that like the magic is with starting to be a good person, being a person
Yes.
in service, being a person who like you said is just fucking kind. You know,
Yeah.
I've experienced more magic with kindness, like you
Yes.
said, than any candle I've ever lit.
Right. And trusting, you know, like trusting yourself. Like I've had so many times where I'm like, you know, I'm impatient, just like other people are impatient, right? I want things to happen right now, right now, right now. But then later on, when they do happen and you look back and you're like, oh God, I'm so glad that didn't happen at that time. Like trusting that this is meant to unfold when it does, you know, and yes, you can, it's not to say just sit back and do nothing, but you know, like really just trusting that things are happening for a reason and you're in the flow of those things. But like, you know, especially working with gods and goddesses or you know, deities of any kind, you need to do your research because it's about honor and ritual and, you know, having connection. You can't just do it. It doesn't work that way. They get real mad.
I think, you know, because I don't want to hold you up too much longer, but I think what's really important with everything that we said, and then again, like looking at, you know, spiritual leaders, like look at people's intentions and understand that intentions are not always direct. There's a lot of subliminal. There's a lot of you know, hypnotism going on. Again, like people underestimate, you know, was it like post hypnotic hypnotic suggestions, like in words and intentions. Like there's a lot to be said in the unsaid, in the tone, in the delivery. And I think sometimes people are underestimating that people aren't showing up in their highest frequency expression, right? And this is the one thing I've learned too, is that just because the shit sounds fucking good doesn't mean it's not coming from a place of imbalance. It doesn't mean it's
Right. That's real.
not coming from a place of malevolence. Like I've had people pray over me who I'm like, bruh, like they got they shit fucking, they demons and their bullshit trying to pray over me right now. And I'm not. So again, intentions aren't always loud because some people are not showing in the highest frequency of their expression. And that's why I tell people sometimes too, because like, you know, for example, like my mom is somebody who can't stand to hear me cuss when I deliver whatever. And I'm like, But that can be an honest, integral, balanced expression. But there are some people who can be in churches that it sounds great and it sounds eloquent and it sounds whatever. It doesn't mean that it's not coming from a low frequency, imbalanced place.
Absolutely not. And like one of the tools that I have for people, you know, when they feel like there's entities. So when we get with, like, let's say they're doing a 30-day connection, they're starting to become more aware of energies around them. Things are, you know, visitations, whatever, things like that. I tell them the best thing you can do in a scenario where you feel like something is not you and is trying to attach or trying to get in is to tell it to fuck off. Because when you do that, you step into your power, you raise your frequency right away. It's temporary, but you do. So you're sitting there like raising yourself into that space of that powerful position. Now, yes, we use the word fuck, but that works. It works.
You know what just came to me as you said that too? I feel like there's so many, and I think this came up too because I feel like I see so many coaches who go into this like trying to put people at ease. I don't always think that you have to be put at ease in order to like receive the messages and to receive the potent medicine. I think so many people are trusting because someone can put you at ease. That means they have your best intentions, when at times I think even that is a tactic to get you to relax and be at ease, to be trusting. So there's times where I know that, like, for me, because my medicine is raw and it's direct, like, because it's like not putting people at ease, they don't always want to trust it. They're like, that's too much, that's too brash, whatever. It's like, no, the medicine is not always going to be like that. So we have to mindful that just because it shows up in a certain way doesn't mean it's more benevolent.
Yes, exactly. Now, again, there's a fine line, right? Because there are other healers who are super abusive. So we're not saying that.
Absolutely.
We're just saying it's honest, it's raw, and it's going to have uncomfortable words in it that are going to make you feel feelings.
Yeah, again, right? Like there's and I've been saying this for the past 2 weeks, there are so many nuances, and intuition lays in the gray area. So if you're somebody who knows how to manage the gray area, because a lot of times people are emotional and people get trapped by their emotions, so they're not able to always go to their objective brain or their logical brain or their reasonable brain. So, you know, it's going to be hard, but you have to find that space in between. And like you said, there's different nuances. There's people who can put you at ease and they are benevolent, but then there's some people who are on the opposite end of the spectrum. And we were talking about this the other day with someone else. You know, people are underestimating that people are really into being dominated and people are really into kinks. So there's times where people, they're trusting people because they want to be told in a certain sadist way that, you know, to feed on their hopelessness or their victim or whatever. So you just have to be careful with all of that.
You do. I mean, both ways, right? The extreme opposites. And also, you know, just I really want people to start believing what they feel. If something does not feel right, it's probably not right. And that's okay for spiritual community too. If you're following someone and they say something and you're like, ooh, that really, like, not that it's like too, you know, honest or too whatever, but that it's actually like weird or disturbing for you or makes you feel bad about yourself. Like if you're going away from that feeling like you're wrong, like there's, you know what I mean? Like something you do is so wrong that you cannot be spiritual. There's something wrong with that message. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People forget that we're all, you know, spirits having a human experience. And even today when I called out a practitioner just for certain reasons, you know, I said to some people in the comments, is like, it's not that I'm saying that spiritual people can't twerk or they can't be scantily clad or they can't be whatever. That's not what we're addressing. You know, in this, what we're addressing is there's a certain colonization, there's certain oppression going on in certain spaces, there's certain biases. These are the things, like, I could give a fuck if a woman wants to twerk and be liberated or be happy or whatever. I think you can be spiritual and do that. But what we're going to talk about is the entity of colonization. That's very rampant, right? that cause a lot of oppression in certain spaces. So I'm like, that's what I give a fuck about.
Right, of course. I mean, yes, and that is totally different.
You know,
Yes.
so I tell people all the time, like, you know, you could be fucking, you could say fucking be spiritual. You can
Oh, you
show your
definitely can do that.
right? There's so many,
Yes.
because we're all on individual journeys, but we just have to be mindful of things that are manipulative and cause harm, and that's it.
Yes, that's it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Trust yourself, be mindful, you know. And if someone tells you, "Oh, you know, you can't be spiritual and have cleavage," no, that's a lie. You know what I mean? Exactly. Hello, mine's covered. I don't even know why. It's like the first time ever. But yes, exactly. Like you can be all of these things. You can be everything and still be spiritual. And anyone who tells you differently, don't listen to that bullshit. That is bullshit.
Mhm. Absolutely. I appreciate you so much for taking your time. You
Oh
know,
my gosh, same, same. Thank you. This was so much fun. I hope people get something out of it.
yeah. No, I know you have. Is it you have 3 books?
No, actually, I have one
Okay.
book, Sister of Darkness,
Okay.
which is my memoir. It talks about, you know, everything I've been through and all kinds of like things you can do and the tools and all that stuff. So if anyone's interested in like how an exorcism works or what the different types of entities are, that's all in there. And we are working on the TV show now, which I'm really excited about. So great. There will be a scripted show, hopefully next year. And working on a second book now, so that hopefully will hit somewhere next year. It just depends on my own ability to get things done at this time. And working now on an unscripted show as well, where I'm hoping to go into some of the darkest places in America and cleanse their entities out, to hopefully positively affect the towns around those spaces. So it's going to be a busy 2023, but I'm really excited about everything we're doing, and thank you for asking. So,
Of course, yeah. So check our book out, Sister of
yes,
Darkness. I'm
thank you.
excited. I'm excited. I mean, like everybody's doing all this fun stuff. You know, I go and do haunted things occasionally, but you know, I'm still a little scary. Like some places, I'm like, no, I'm not fucking with that. Like,
That's okay. That's fine.
I don't know if you ever heard about. I went into the Charleston jail in 2021, I think. That's pretty much the scariest place I've gone yet. That spirit was like, yeah, you could go there, and I did have a spirit tell me how they, you know, passed there. That was later confirmed, so that was cute. That was fun. But yeah, I love all of that. And I can't wait to see some of your new work and some of those journeys and shit. I might fuck around if I'm invited. I'll come with you on one of the scariest places.
Yes, yes, of
I get my
course, yes.
up.
We'll have another celebrity exorcism, which you can watch on Tubi for free. Just anybody who wants to see that. But yeah, we'll do something. We're gonna figure this out, but we're gonna do something.
Yeah, the White Lady. There's a spirit in Connecticut called the White Lady. I forget the graveyard. I did go ghost hunting for her, and she made a casual, quick appearance for me on camera. I was like, yes, thank you.
That's awesome. I love when that happens.
I'm leaving now. Bye.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And for those of you who want to follow Rachel, her page is RHSTAVIS, and I'm going to be saving this anyway. You could just
Yes, I will too.
go over to her page, give her a follow, get into some of her work, and yeah, get hip to exorcism, y'all, because it's just not always what we think it is. And daily we can help ourselves keep our frequency high, so we don't need one.
Yes, and I give you the tools, so come on over and see it and give yourself the time to do it. It takes 30 days. We don't stop once. We do it for the full 30 days, but you're worth it. You're worth it. So let's do it.
Yes, thank you so much, love.
Thank you.
And I look forward to doing this again in the future.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, love. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.